He was the target of a 4-year-long manhunt. Now the D.C. pipe bomb suspect is fighting to stay out of federal detention as he waits for his trial. A hearing for 30-year-old Brian Cole Jr. ended minutes ago. Cole is accused of setting a pipe bomb outside the headquarters of both the Republican and Democratic committees the day before the January 6th attack. Prosecutors believe he thought the 2020 election was stolen. In court today, defense attorneys said Cole is not a threat to the public and should be released under house arrest, wear an ankle monitor, and be subject to unannounced visits. CNN's Evan Perez has been following the hearing. Give us the latest. This seems like a really steep climb for him to stay out of jail.
Yeah, exactly. And the judge did not make a decision today. There was a hearing. It lasted a lot longer than I thought it would, almost 2 hours apparently. And the judge really was focused on the prosecution's argument that obviously these were pipe bombs, these were viable devices, they could have hurt people, and they were found just before the riot began at the U.S. Capitol. If you remember, these two devices were placed in an alley behind the RNC, just outside of the DNC. These are buildings that are just a couple blocks away from the Capitol, and when they were discovered, they drew police away from the Capitol, which led to a lot of confusion and for a while belief that the two events were connected, because right about then the crowds started breaking through the police cordons to get to the Capitol building. Prosecutors say that these two devices were viable, and that in his confession, after many hours of questioning from the FBI, he said that he was not only frustrated about the 2020 election, the claims that the election was stolen, which was what Donald Trump was making, the claims he was making, but also that he was frustrated with both political parties, essentially saying that he had a beef with both Republicans and Democrats. As you pointed out, the defense is arguing that, he, with an ankle monitor, with visits from pretrial services, that he does not pose a threat. And also he suffers from a form of autism. So they believe that he should be released to the care of his parents.
What more did we learn about the alleged plot?
Well, the plot, the prosecutors lay out exactly what they say, he went about to put together these bombs. He learned some of the recipe essentially for these devices from playing video games, from researching it on the internet. He's apparently a student of history, and so looked at how bombs were made during the IRA unrest in Northern Ireland, and they cataloged all of his purchases for the pieces of these devices over the period of months, as he finally put together these devices and put them right outside there, these two buildings, on the day before January 6th.
And the prosecution making the point is they're saying he should remain detained, that he was making purchases after?
He was making purchases even afterwards, because it appeared he could have made additional devices.
Interesting. All right, Evan, thank you so much. Let's turn now to former federal prosecutor Ankush Kharduri. He is now a senior writer for Politico magazine. All right, Ankush, based on what we're learning in this hearing, do you have any expectation that the suspect could be released to be essentially watched by his parents as he's awaiting trial?
I think you put it well. It looks like it's going to be an uphill battle. And it looks like the judge is doing the right thing and taking some time with it. These are fairly standard positions, I would say, actually, for both the government and the defense to take, even in a high-profile case, right? The government is going to want this person detained. They said, as they said today, that they're concerned about him. And the defense wants to argue that there are a host of conditions that can be applied to make this a person suitable for being out on bond. And a big reason the defendants and defense counsel want that arrangement is because it makes it easier for them to prepare for trial. It is very hard to work with a client who is detained. It is much harder to work with someone who's detained than someone who's out. So there's a very real stakes here for both sides.
So it's not good, obviously, for his argument in trying to get pretrial release, that prosecutors are saying, look, it wasn't just these bombs. He was buying bomb-making materials after January 2021. But I wonder how you think that is going to actually affect him at the actual trial, not just for this pretrial detention issue, but actually if this does go to trial.
Yeah, it's not clear to me that would have much relevance to the charged offenses. Now, it's important to remember, given where we are right now, the defense indictment was apparently just returned from a lower court today. The defense still has to get discovery, right? At any moment, and frequently after defendants get discovery, they decide to plead out because they get to see the weight of the government's evidence. Often, as you know, they may decide to take this case to trial and exercise his right to mount a defense and require the government to put its evidence through the ordinary burden, establishing his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So, a lot of what happens in a bail hearing like this tends not to be relevant to the actual trial and more relevant to like a sentencing hearing, actually, if there's an ultimate conviction, where we talk about, well, what makes sense for this defendant, how onerous should it be, how severe should the punishment be. But we're not at that stage yet. But that's how I, sort of tend to think about what we hear at a bail hearing. It tends not to concern the offense so much as the specific characteristics of the offender.
So what else are you looking for in this case besides this moving towards discovery and seeing whether this actually goes to trial?
I'm very eager to see a complete copy in whatever form the government has it of their interview with the defendant, right? They've summarized that interview, characterized it as a confession, and there are a bunch of sort of clipped quotes in the government's detention memo. But I think at some point, certainly the defense will get access to the full statement and exactly what was said, whether it was recorded or summarized in an FBI memo. And I think it'll be very interesting for us as members of the public to get some further insight into that, because the notion that this person was motivated by frustration with both sides, it's a very convenient argument for the Trump administration, but it's very possible that the reason he was frustrated with both sides is because he believed the lies that Trump and people like Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. attorney in D.C., were promoting about Trump having, quote unquote, won the election. And, at the time, Trump was railing against Republicans, too. Recall, right? He was trying to get them to intervene on his behalf at January 6th. So I'm quite interested to see what this gentleman actually said, this defendant actually said, and how serious it was, because this is a major case. And obviously, we're going to want to get as much insight into his mind as possible.
Yeah, his own vice president even. Ankush Khardori, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
CNN senior justice correspondent Evan Perez is here with me in the Situation Room. Evan, Brian Cole is due in court this afternoon for a detention hearing. Walk us through what will happen.
Well, what we expect, Wolf, is for the government to make the case that he is a danger to society, to the community, and they'll go through what he has said in his alleged confession. They claim that during his confession, he said that he was concerned that the 2020 election was stolen, which is, of course, a claim that President Trump was making at the time. And it really was the claim that brought all of those thousands of people to the Capitol for the January 6th, the riot that happened at the Capitol. But Brian Cole says that he was not motivated by that. It wasn't at all connected to the congressional certification of the vote, that he was simply lashing out at the two parties, which he said were in control of everything. And again, his frustrations were about the 2020 election. In his defense, his lawyers are saying that he poses no danger to the community, that he has an autism spectrum disorder, level 1, that he's also got an obsessive compulsive disorder. And they say that house arrest, an ankle bracelet, ankle monitor would be sufficient to make sure that everything is fine while he awaits trial. The irony of all of this, Wolf, is the fact that obviously President Trump has pardoned more than 1,500 people who were associated with the riot on January 6th of 2021. These bombs were found outside the RNC and the DNC just before that riot started. And as it stands right now, the current Trump administration, he is the only person essentially who would be held accountable for anything that happened that day, because the president, of course, has either commuted his sentences or pardoned all of the people who were associated with the riot.
What other new details, Evan, I'm just curious, are we learning from these just released court documents detailing Cole's apparent confession?
Right. I mean, he describes how he has an interest in history. He learned about these bombs, reading in history, reading about how bombs were made. He apparently played video games where he learned about some of the ingredients used to make the pipe bombs. He went through with the FBI exactly how he made them and why he placed them at the RNC and the DNC headquarters that day.